So now I'm going to move forward here. These are things you should consider before deciding to run. And anybody who does decide to run, and they were to counsel with me, I'd almost want them to not run, because I want them to know what they're up against so that they can be successful in making that race. Probably the half a dozen questions to ask yourself, do I like people? Because I mean, that's really important, because and can you recall people's names? I got to tell you, that's one of my, if I were doing this for myself now, I can remember the face, but I can't stick the name together. And I don't have Franklin Delano Roosevelt, his Postmaster General William Farley had a photographic memory for name and person and history. So whenever FDR was going somewhere, he'd have Farley at his side, and Farley would whisper everything, and so FDR was a hero. Obviously, what prompts you for running for office? I mean, this is really critical. You know, why are you wanting to run? How will you serve the community? But otherwise, will you feel you can help your community be a better place? This is a critical one. Do I have the fire in the belly to do it? Teddy Kennedy felt it was his responsibility to follow, and after Jack and Bobby were assassinated, to run for president. But his heart wasn't in it. And on 60 Minutes, the Schieffer, I think it was, interviewed him and said, why are you running for president? He couldn't answer it. He just fumbled it, and his campaign went. And that's, the fire in the belly is really important, because one of the questions I'm going to ask later, you have to do 110%, and you have to be willing to give up things that you are doing now. Some candidates will run because they're one issue. You know, there's only one thing they're running on. And if you're a one-issue candidate, people begin to know that. The little local newspapers, they don't like one-issue candidates, and the big papers too. Sometimes somebody will run because I can't stand the incumbent, or there's a reason the incumbent doesn't have an opponent. In Bothell, after I left the wars, the mayor was seeing no opposition, and the former council member jumped in the race at the last moment. The mayor spent $21,000. He got reelected by 70%. I don't know what she spent, but why do it? You know, why spend the energy on what I call a counter purpose? Some people might think the salary and the prestige. Well, the salary is important to the prestige. Let me tell you, you're well below minimum wage when you work for local government as an elected. I mean, nobody's going to retire from it. And then related to that, will I run a credible campaign? Now, there can be a reason that you run if the opposing party doesn't have somebody running against them. You can be a sacrificial lamb. That's very valid. I'm not going to talk about little lambs because I want you to win, period. That's the purpose of the game. And as I mentioned earlier, what am I going to give up to wage an effective campaign? And maybe most important is asking easy. And if there's one thing you're going to get through this, is you're going to ask, whether it's time, whether it's money, whatever. How do you like rejection? All of us like people to like us. But guess what? Some people aren't going to like you, and you're going to ask for the bucks, and they say, no, can't do it. Well, who would be your opponent? You know, if it's an open district, you might have half a dozen people running, but it helps to know if there's going to be some name brand opponent to run against. Maybe most important, does your significant other, your family, whoever that you share your life with, are they on board? Because if they're not on board, you're going to be going up a stream or river against you. So these are some of the things you need to look at. And conversely, what are some of your weaknesses? And this is really important. You need to ask the hard questions. How clean is your personal record? Do you have any DWIs? Do you have anything that can come back and haunt you? I'm not picking on Angie, but there was something in her record that the Republicans were able to use to great advantage from her time as being county staffer. You need to ask the hard questions. Say, is there something that the opposition is going to throw at me? And it's really important. There was a candidate for Olympia City Council, and he got into office, and he's a good Democrat, and it was almost like he was feeling he was anointed to be the next county council member for that area. Well, a righty who knew how to do attack online, he put out some really tough stuff against this guy, basically saying the Democrats are out to coronate this guy, and he didn't win. It was about a 2% margin, and in politics, 2% is significant. Useful discretions, how about tweets? I mean, this is now the world of tweeterdom, and it's critical. Do you have any obligations that are going to keep you from being full-time, almost full-time on your job? As I mentioned, comfortable asking people for their time and the money. And this is maybe one of the most important things. Are you comfortable speaking in front of people? I mean, it's not easy. And I'm going to talk to you about the standard presentation that you should make and how to help yourself. So then I mentioned earlier the political environment. Is it a reform year and you're going to run as a reform candidate? Will that help you? What are the ballot issues above you that are going to draw out people who will support you and versus not? When I was running in '72, we had a progressive, Sissy Farenthold, running for governor. Dolph Briscoe was the conservative Democrat, old style. And I was asked more times than not, where do you stand on Briscoe or Sissy, and I felt like being like Obama on the abortion issue. I should have said it's above my pay grade, but that was the toughest question to come into. But you have to be prepared to answer those tough questions. And I talk about the civic resume, and this is a term that I came up with. What have you done in the community that creates credibility, that people can say, yeah, Mike Novoy, yeah, he's done this, he's done that, and he's recommending this, he can get the job done. So one of the things when we talk about running a campaign for 2 years before Election Day is, do you have a good civic resume? Do you have issues to run on? And then who would be potentially your supporters? Because you need to think about who's going to support you